Hello and welcome to Fan/Fiction with Andrew/Zach. I'm Zach Dunsing.
And I'm Andrew Gum.
And this one is a fun episode. It's our very first episode that we recorded, but we chose not to use it because we don't know what we're talking about.
Arguably, we still don't know what we're talking about, but in this episode, we talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Bigfoot, Batman.
The 3 Bs.
Yeah, it's bodacious.
It's bonkers.
It's ballsy?
It's bigger than a bread box?
That was the one. That's like 12 Bs now. So, hello, and welcome to a grand experiment in fan fiction. My name is Andrew Gum.
No grander than those which have already been experimented.
Yes, maybe we should say a fine experiment in fan fiction. We're aiming for adequate.
Can we just say humble exploration?
Yeah, I think that's more accurate. This is a humble quest to understand something that we are definitely behind the times on.
Quest seems a little strong, Andrew.
Let's pedal that back a little further. Let's go. We are in the midst of a just random series of actions, sort of like a 5K that you didn't pay for. You just kind of ran it yourself. Mm-hmm. Nobody asked you to. Mm-hmm. It wasn't a part of a group decision. No charity was helped. We're just kind of doing this because, you have to do something to keep the darkness at bay.
And everyone's made of dust and random molecules.
Yeah, so in the end, this, like all things, doesn't matter, but thank you for tuning in.
From the top.
Yeah.
So, welcome to the show. This is Fan/Fiction with Andrew/Zach. And I'm
Andrew.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm Andrew. He's Zach. I just thought I'd jump the gun on that one.
I was just about to explain that part.
Cool. He's Zach. He's the one who sounds grumpy.
Okay, from the top.
He is. Okay.
So, welcome to the show. This is Fan/Fiction with Andrew/Zach. My name's Zach Dunsing, and my co-host is Andrew Gum.
That's me. I'm Andrew Gum.
He's right. That's Andrew.
You can tell because I have the more nasal of the two voices. So listen for that.
You can tell because I'm the one that doesn't sound like a 14-year-old.
And I'm the one who does. So enjoy that. Neither Zach nor I have much personal experience with fan fiction, but we have collaborated on a number of writing projects and film projects over the years of our friendship. And just as people that are interested in good storytelling, we wanted to document our foray into fan fiction in a podcast format. So that is what you are listening to.
I feel like the podcast format comment goes without saying. However, I agree with everything else you said. We are fans of fan fiction, although I realize that this is a very robust community that we really don't know that much about, but are very interested in getting to know. And this is the thing that, this is why I wanted to do this, is because we looked at, just the cursory look at fanfiction.net, one of the websites that hosts a lot of these user-made fan fiction and crossover fan fiction stories, has upwards of 100,000 of these stories. There's over 31,000 stories for Naruto alone. Now, I realize Naruto is very popular with younger kids, especially teens, but I don't know anything about Naruto. I don't understand how you could write 31,000 separate stories about him, but I want to find out.
Yeah. And that was my exact feeling as well. So when we embarked on this experiment, I just went in kind of blind and went to fanfiction.com and
.net.
was just .net and was just instantly overwhelmed, like to the point where I felt like I had stepped into something that I had no business stepping into.
Oh, we are strangers in a strange land here, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Ooh, there's probably a good Strangers in a Strange Land crossover fanfiction.
I've often thought that like a Stranger in the Strange Land / Bible crossover would be interesting, where Valentine is Jesus, because it's like a Christ narrative anyway. But there is Bible fanfiction.
I
look it up.
Found it today, and the first one I immediately was drawn to was Bible fiction / Where in the World is Carmen Sandiego, and I pulled up the story, but I couldn't look at it because I hadn't checked my specifications to be able to view mature content. So whatever is going on in that story, it gets blue.
You just know that Carmen Sandiego gets so turned into a pillar of salt at the end. Like, so salty.
Although, actually, that one I really get because I always had a crush on her as a kid.
Oh, yeah, totally. And then,
I mean, who didn't?
Where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? Probably Sodom and Gomorrah in that story.
In that story, yeah.
So, Zach, when we were talking about going into this together and sort of documenting our journey, I read a few today. The one that I found was like most fun.
Before we get into that, like, this is a question. So this is the thesis of what we're trying to do. But like, why? You know, why fan fiction? Why the interest? Why? Because there's something beautiful about it to me, which is that, like, especially the crossover stuff. And then we're going to mostly focus on crossover fan fiction, which, if you don't know, is where you take one character and you cross them over with another character and you create a story where they interact. And this is mind-boggling to me because you are purposefully stealing from two intellectual properties, right? if not more.
Yeah.
And you're just, by definition, what you're making, it can't go anywhere. You can't make any money off of it. You can't do anything with it except host it on the internet. And that's what I love about it, is that it's like, it's by no means a futile effort. It does, like, maybe borderline on nihilism, but it's like...
But I think of it as the good kind of nihilism, where it's like an acknowledgement that this, in its current form at least, it cannot make you any commercial money. There can be no commercial return. And so it's sort of like saying, well, it doesn't really matter. I want this to exist because I want it to exist.
Exactly.
It's like a true expression of love for these fictions.
It's
like,
so pure.
Yeah.
And
I really found that in some of the stuff that I was reading was just the love for the characters is the central part of it. Like the love for the worlds and then these characters. I read a piece of fan fiction about the an alternate ending to the Dark Tower series. And I don't want to spoil the end of the Dark Towers series for anyone, but it's just it shows all the characters getting exactly what they want. So this person that clearly loved the Dark Tower series just wanted a happy, beautiful ending for these characters they loved. And I thought that was just such a joyful thing to put into the world with a series that does not necessarily have a joyful ending. Right.
And you can't always do that in your stories because you need conflict and they need to be challenging. And, if Stephen King did that, they'd call him a cop-out. But these people, it's just that idea that, like, they care so deeply and so genuinely about these characters that they want to see them be happy and do well and maybe meet some of their other other favorite characters and, like, more often than not, like, have sex with those characters.
Right. I mean, what truer expression of love than two male characters from two different universes discovering each other sexually.
Yeah. It's great.
I think it's great.
It's a beautiful thing.
So, yeah.
And two characters, I'm not backtracking on this here. When I say two characters of any gender, I mean any gender from a man to a unicorn. Like,
yeah.
This is some real shit.
And when I think of my own gender, I think of it somewhere between a man and a unicorn. So that fiction really speaks specifically to me.
You won't believe this, but that's literally what the t-shirt I got you for your Christmas says. Andrew Gum, your gender, etc.
Oh my God. Well, you see good people listening to this, that this is like real, like you're seeing some real chemistry between your co-hosts here. So know that it's real. And all of everything that we're doing here, even if we sound snarky or cynical, it comes from a fully non-snarky, non-cynical place. It comes from a true place of admiration for just a raw creative impulse. So we
absolutely.
Yeah,
and if before I said, or perhaps you interpreted that what I said was that creating fan fiction is futile, well, I can think of nothing more futile than creating a podcast about it.
Yeah. So
we're in the same boat, people.
So, should we talk about the things that we read and share them? So people at home,
yes.
One of the things that we had discussed as format was for Zach and I to independently find pieces of fiction and then talk through them together for the first time in the podcast. So you're getting it live.
Absolutely. This has been a delightful journey, and it's just the beginning. Just peering into this world. Do you want to go first, or should I go first?
I will go first because I found something that I thought was truly delightful this morning. So at the end of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, at the end of The Restaurant at the End of the Universe.
Is that the second in the series? Or Okay, I never read that one. But Douglas Adams, genius.
Yeah. Ford and Arthur end up on prehistoric Earth. And so this is a piece of...
The two main characters. One a robot, one a human being.
One is an alien named Ford Prefect, named after the car.
Right.
And Arthur Dent is just a very, very normal Englishman who is ill-equipped for, all the space hijinks they get into. And so Douglas Adams has a...
Tim from The Office's character in the movie, correct?
Yeah, okay, exactly.
Thanks.
Exactly. So this is called On Prehistoric Earth, and the author's name is Natilia, Nitilia. And what I really loved about it, so here's the first line. It goes, Arthur Dent woke up screaming, which was nothing to worry about and perfectly normal. And that is just like a perfect capturing of the Douglas Adams sense of humor. And so the whole story plays out after A Restaurant at the End of the Universe, where they're stranded on prehistoric Earth, and it's an exploration of Arthur and Ford's friendship with each other. Sort of gives you this dive into their characters because they're stranded there for 4 years, and they're just slowly losing their minds. And it's really funny and delightful.
Well, what's some stuff that happens to him?
So in the story, Arthur has been alone for 4 years and has horrible nightmares every night and speaks to trees because trees are his best friends because they never call him stupid. And then Ford shows up, and Ford has been trying to hail down spaceships with his Sensomatic, his sub-etha Sensomatic, like hitchhiker thumb, which is a thing in the books. And they're trying to grab a hold of this cosmic sofa, this anachronistic sofa that's coming through time so that they can get into it. And that's what happens in the books, if I remember correctly. It's been a long time since I read those books. But then, so that they could get back into their timeline, but it disappears. So now they're just trapped on prehistoric Earth together, and they have to work out their relationship.
The sofa disappears?
Yeah, the sofa disappears. It goes back through time, and they weren't able to grab a hold of it. Here, let me read you.
Give me a good line.
Just something that kind of shows you this author kind of capturing Douglas Adams. So Ford was twice as annoying as usual when he was depressed, thrice as annoying when he was depressed and had nothing alcoholic to drink. If you've ever read Douglas Adams, his prose is so filled with little witticisms like that.
It's very silly and light.
And here's another one. Let me just give you one more. Where is home? He asked curiously. You're a hitchhiker. Ford shrugged. Everywhere is home. Anywhere that you haven't stayed too long. That sounds like the precise definition of what home isn't, which is cute.
That's
and
great.
Fun.
Okay, so
I really enjoy
how does it end?
So it ends with them still trapped on the planet, and Ford has left Arthur again by himself, and he's started losing his mind again, but then Ford comes back again, sort of showing that their relationship is you can't really count on Ford. He'll always disappear, but he will also always come back because deep down, Arthur is his only real friend too. So it's a pretty beautiful story about friendship and desperate horror of being on prehistoric Earth with one other person. So here, let me read you the last little line. Perhaps he'd wake up in the morning, see Ford next to him, and realize what a fool he had been for thinking he was going to be alone forever. It was more likely that he would just scream.
Oh, it sounds like us.
Yeah, exactly. So, what did you read, Zach?
First of all, wait. There are no little animated dinosaurs in the story you read? There's no Land Before Time, like, cameos?
No, nothing in there. I know it isn't a crossover. I know, because...
I was just asking. It's fine. They don't all have to be crossover.
Yeah. Yeah, it's... there was no Land Before Time. No, secretly it was Jurassic Park the whole time. No Ice Age cameos, which would be cool. Like a Dennis Leary saber-toothed tiger would have been great, but...
That's true.
Alas.
It worked nonetheless. Okay, so this was the first one that I read, and it's a Nolan Batman universe. So this is I'm not going to tell you who it's crossed over with yet, because there's a little bit of a reveal.
Cool.
So it's The Dark Knight Rises. Presumably the narrator here is Alfred. So I'm going to read you the first couple of lines, and then I'll sort of explain what happens in it.
Word.
The author is Villemot, Villemoo, like as if you were really screwing up Denis Villeneuve's name. Or maybe it is him.
Oh.
Seems like it could be him.
I hope it would be him.
Okay, so here's the first couple of lines. It started when the dust settled over the ruins of the city. We rebuilt and came together, and everything seemed to be on a good path. Hope and peace ruled once again. Even though we lost our hero, another took his place. Despite new foes, our city prevailed, fought back, and rose from the ashes. That's how I know it takes place after The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah, it sounds very superheroic to begin with.
So the kids of St. Swithin's relocate to Wayne Manor. I'm assuming St. Swithin's is the orphanage in The Dark Knight Rises.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah, also, I tried to look it up, but I discovered there is St. Swithin's Day, which happens to be on the same day as my birthday, I discovered. But it's also referenced in that one episode of The Simpsons that references Rear Window, the one where Bart breaks his leg and is stuck watching the Flanders, and they do a Rear Window thing, and he thinks Maud Flanders is murdered, but he also in that process like writes a one-act play that involves like St. Swithin's Day. So this one may or may not also be a crossover with The Simpsons and Hitchcock. That the jury's still out on that.
I'm just going to go ahead and assume that it is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree.
For me.
I agree. So the kids from St. Swithin's move into Wayne Manor. Wayne Manor just becomes the orphanage. All the kids start getting sort of superstitious and freaked out by Wayne Manor because it's a big spooky place. But as Alfred soon discovers, it's not the manor they're afraid of. So let me just take an excerpt here for you. But it turned out no one was afraid of ghosts, even with all those squeaky hinges and dark corners and deep cellars. No, they were afraid of something else entirely. Bigfoot.
Thank you for not spoiling that for me.
You are very welcome. And you may thank our author. So, Wayne Manor's surrounded by forest. All the kids basically keep seeing Bigfoot. There's a lot of them. They just continue to see Bigfoot. Also, Alfred, our narrator here, I'm assuming he's the narrator, is very religious in this particular version of Alfred's very religious. He says a lot of things like, "May the Holy Mother keep us safe." So I guess also this might also be Bible crossover as well. There's a lot going on here in just a couple of pages. So essentially, it's a pretty short story, actually. So essentially, they keep finding footprints all throughout the forest, big long footprints, and essentially the kids keep getting more and more curious, and then stuff starts disappearing from Wayne Manor, like stuff's getting stolen. But it's being replaced with game, like dead ducks hanging from the wall, like stuff that's been caught, presumably.
Oh, it's like a very fair quid pro quo Bigfoot.
Yes.
Scenario.
Oh, yes. And not only that, he leaves notes. Let's see. One of the notes he leaves says, is a quote, "The roots of all goodness lie in the soil of appreciation for goodness."
Okay.
Which Alfred goes on to use in his Sunday sermon. So again, pretty religious take on Alfred.
Yeah. It also sounds like maybe it's a religious Yeti as well.
It could be, yeah. Although aren't they Nepalese?
Yeah. So, I mean, it might be like a Dalai Lama Bigfoot?
It could
Is that
be.
Nepal? That's Tibet. I'm sorry. Let's just cut that part out.
I'm not cutting that part out.
Oh, man.
So, basically what happens is they keep having stuff stolen, but it's nothing big. And Alfred, being a religious man, a good Christian, I'm not going to say religious man, being a Christian, doesn't want to judge, lest he be judged. And essentially just lets this happen. Stuff keeps disappearing and dead animals keep showing up. And then eventually a bunch of kids go missing and they have to hide out in a shack or something during a storm. And as the storm is raining down on the shack, somebody is outside of the shack repairing it. This is all just, everything's told after the fact, by Alfred. Also, they discover a wounded deer at one point, and then like a day or so later, its leg has been mended somehow. So essentially, this is a benevolent Bigfoot, although for some reason, Alfred does not trust him at all. And essentially doesn't until a kid goes missing again and returns later with a gift from Bigfoot, which is like a teddy bear with its head almost ripped off, which I honestly couldn't tell if that meant that was like, if that was a good sign or a bad sign.
Yeah. I assume good.
It's good. It's a good sign. He saves the kid. And then, essentially Alfred's big scheme at the end is to, he essentially has like, I guess the people who work in Wayne Manor and himself, they essentially literally cobble together some big shoes for Bigfoot.
Aww.
Yeah, it's sweet. So he gets, they leave it out there. Oh yeah, also Bigfoot steals a bunch of marmalade at one point, which is sweet.
That is sweet.
So they leave him big shoes and marmalade, and then he leaves them a note that says thank you, and that's basically it. Yeah, they never see him again. That's the last line, actually, is they never see Bigfoot again. Or no, actually, now that I'm rereading it, it says we never saw the footprints of our Bigfoot again. So maybe they just saw shoe prints. So maybe he's still around.
Yeah, just a very big shoe print.
Yeah, I think that's right.
Okay.
So I thought there was going to be a big reveal at the end because the sort of title or tagline to this story is Bane is Bigfoot.
Oh.
So I think what the implication is, because of all of Alfred's distrust throughout all of this, is that Bane has turned over a new leaf and is also Bigfoot.
So both existing simultaneously. Like that he is Bigfoot, like the Bigfoot, and also is no longer a supervillain like he was in The Dark Knight Rises.
Right. And I guess also is no longer dead like he was in The Dark Knight Rises.
Right. So I thought, so at the end of Dark Knight Rises, everybody thinks that Batman is dead too, or maybe he is in that universe. I know that Alfred sees him at the end.
Right,
so what
sure.
I thought was that this was all leading up to a huge like pun joke where the Bigfoot comes in to replace Batman to like defend the city. So they're like slowly teaching him, and then Alfred takes him into the Batcave, and the whole joke at the end is like, well, you've got some mighty big shoes to fill. And that was going to be the big joke at the end.
That works no matter who you put Bigfoot in a scenario with.
That's true.
Like literally anyone who does a job, you can say, well, you got mighty big shoes to fill.
Yeah, I mean, we should do more Bigfoot crossover with everything, and it always is leading to that.
It always ends with, well, Mr. Bigfoot, is it Bigfoot or Big Feet? Bigfoot? Okay. Well, Mr. Bigfoot, you've got some mighty big blah, 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 blah.
and then everyone cheers no matter what it is.
Insane.
That's such a good tag out. Well, to me, all right, so that's a perfect example. And then that's something that I would be interested in doing too, is like, that's where my mind immediately went with this. So that's sort of like my fan fiction of the fan fiction.
Well, yeah, I think
like,
that's what you're good at.
Well, that's just something that I really like about what they're doing. The author is taking this premise that resonated and then taking it in a direction that the author's mind went down, which was this delightful journey of a Bigfoot. And so,
yeah, go ahead. Well, so there's a thing with the fan fiction, which is like, I mean, there's stuff like this that I like enormously, which is just like, why? No. Why not? You know, like, right. Why would, but he even says at one point that like he Alfred and the kids would have assumed that a creature such as Bigfoot would have lived in a place like Montana, but nope, they're in Gotham City. So it's like, what, why? Because
right.
it should happen. That's why.
And I think what fan fiction gets to the heart of is like, why do we write fictions at all? Why Batman? Why is this any weirder than the premise of Batman? Why is, a Bigfoot and like this little like Scooby-Doo-esque adventure going on around that, like any less relevant than the source material? And in my mind, it isn't. If it resonates with you as a reader and it comes from a place of love for the material, then there is no real difference other than a commercial difference.
Well, and skill.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, that's like, that matters.
So yes, absolutely. So what are the parts of the story that connect? And then, if the story resonates with you though, and I haven't read much myself again, but I'm excited to, because there are people in the fan fiction community that I've heard that say some of the things they've read that are fan fiction are better than the source material itself, or they enjoyed more than the source material, which is very high praise because this is coming from super fans.
Yes, and that is our white whale. However, when you're making fan fiction of like Teen Witch or whatever, like,
right,
how are you not better than the source material?
Hey, there's some really good stuff in Sabrina the Teenage Witch. Have you seen Salem? He is so snarky.
I was actually just talking about Teen Witch, which is a terrible.
I don't know
movie.
that. I don't know that reference. I tried to jump on the wagon with you, but
that's close. Either work. I think either joke works.
I was assuming Teen Wolf.
Oh,
Maybe
yeah.
We could do a Teen Wolf, Teen Witch, and then Teen Titans team up. That would be pretty cool.
A TTTT.
And the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles are are the bad guys in that one.
Oh yeah, and they could fight their number one villain, teenage pregnancy.
Yes. Who's the real villain in most stories,
Yeah.
I think.
Agreed. Agreed.
Though if you trace it back to the root, maybe just, education and availability of resources is the real villain.
So I like these off the wall, just like, yeah, let's see what happens when we put these two characters together. I like that. I also really appreciate the ones that truly make sense. Like I haven't read it yet, but I'll probably do it later if it's good. But I saw one that was like Indiana Jones Rocketeer crossover, which like makes perfect sense.
And it's like, oh my gosh, of course they live in the same world.
Yeah, because not only that, those movies share a creative team. Like Joe Johnston, I believe worked on Indiana Jones. I'm not 100% on that, but I know that he directed Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. He directed The Rocketeer. He did all the storyboarding for the original Star Wars movies. Like he was in the Zemeckis, Spielberg, Lucas camp for a long time. So it's like, yeah, it makes sense that they would exist together. And those stories,
it's not even a logical leap.
Yeah.
Like that's just a good story.
It just makes sense.
Just those two, people meeting. It's not like silly and campy. It's like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you go onto the opposite end of the spectrum, which I also find delightful, is you can play out thought experiments in fan fiction, like the USS Enterprise meets like Slave One from Star Wars.
Yeah, totally.
So, and then
they would not get along.
I don't think they would. I think there's some ideological differences there.
Yeah, whatever the opposite of the Prime Directive is, that's Boba Fett's directive.
Oh, there's a prime numbers joke in there, and I just cannot get to it. Yeah. So what I'm excited as we go forward is exploring all of it. Basically, I want this toe dipping in first episode to lead into like a deep dive, as deep as we can go. So the format may change as we go forward, but that will only be because we're trying to look at the material as extensively as we can, getting deeper and deeper every time. So
Great.
So in conclusion for today, this has been our first foray into the world of fan fiction. My name is Andrew Gum.
I'm Zach Dunsing, and we will call this 0.001.
That sounds good. It's accurate. Bye. Andrew here. Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to hear more of this stuff, go to fanfiction.show or anywhere else you go to get your podcasts. Contact us at xandru@fanfiction.show, and our Twitter and Instagram are @fanfictionshow. Thanks again.